I don't like my job at the moment, so let's try something different. If it doesn't work out, I could just get another job, right? Whatever you could get your hands on, you couldn't, it was being sold that day. It was, you couldn't get your hands on the products quick enough.
But early on, I've had some abysmal mistakes with sending stuff in, but not telling Amazon I sent stuff in, or just putting the wrong SKU code.
The only way to really make money on Amazon is to just take those risks that not everyone else is willing to take.
So from that big purchase, how much do you think you made from that one purchase alone?
Probably about £4,000 profit.
So welcome to the first episode of the Seller Toolkit show, and the first episode we are here and joined by Aaron. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Aaron.
Hi there, yeah, my name's Aaron. I'm 38, I live down in Dorset, and I've been selling on Amazon for just over 4 years now.
So Aaron, talk me through the first time that you decided to do something a little bit different. Not necessarily Amazon FBA, but just something different from the classic 9 to 5.
So I've always sort of had a 9 to 5 ever since I left school. But I've never really been satisfied and always looking for extra. So I've done a few sort of side quests. I was an affiliate marketer for a company called Profit Accumulator, which is a match betting site. So I did that for about a year. And then during COVID, obviously working from home didn't really suit what I wanted to do. I worked for a great company at the time with really, really good benefits. However, when we moved to home, the benefits stopped. And then, it was just a very unenjoyable job. It did take a little bit of battering on my mental health, I will say. And after a brief conversation with a guy that I used to work with, decided just to quit my job there and then, which was a bit of a risky move because I've got 3 kids, partner, house to pay for. I just thought, I don't like my job at the moment, so let's try something different. If it doesn't work out, I could just get another job, right?
Yeah, exactly. You got to take risks and set yourself up for just giving yourself more freedom. Really, I think that's the best thing about, I guess, side hustles in general. Is it just gives you the freedom and your own boss, and I imagine that works really well for you with a family.
Yeah, and we've also decided to home educate our kids as well. So having that freedom we've just got a nice dynamic at the moment. I work from home, work in the office in the garden, so I did a lot of retail arbitrage, which I was kind of away from home a lot of the time at the beginning. And then since we decided to home educate them, I do a lot more of online arbitrage, A2A as well at the moment. So it ties in really well, and also it means that we don't have to pay stupid prices for holidays during.
Yeah. So out of all the side hustles out there, what decided you to specifically go into Amazon FBA?
It was more of a natural progression, really. So when I quit my job, it was mainly to do reselling, so PlayStation 5s, hot tubs, all that sort of stuff during COVID. And then when COVID kind of came to an end and products were more readily available, the demand wasn't really there. So it was a case of, do I get a 9 to 5 again, or do I try something different? And there was talks about Amazon FBA in the space at the time, so it was just a case of, let's see if that works. And I've not looked back since.
And I've heard it's a lot less gruesome. I've heard some horrible stories about those hot tubs and having to rent them out and then have people having to clean them and.
Yeah, so ours wasn't kind of that side of things. We were more just selling the hot tubs rather than, there were businesses around the area that did the renting out and the cleaning and all that sort of stuff. But it was just more quick flips. And at the time, whatever you could get your hands on, you couldn't, it was being sold that day. It was, you couldn't get your hands on the products quick enough. So it was really, really good start, and it allowed me to build capital to then put straight into Amazon.
So those are some of the good times at the beginning of your Amazon FBA journey. Were there any mistakes you had early on?
So from the start till now, I haven't really made too many mistakes, touch wood, and nothing that I can kind of really point my finger on. So touch wood, everything's been okay so far.
That's great, because I remember early on I've had some abysmal mistakes of sending stuff in but not telling Amazon I sent stuff in, or just putting the wrong SKU code, or I've loads and loads of mistakes to make, so that was really good.
Yeah, loads of mistakes do happen, and I've seen it with my own eyes. However, I've made the odd mistake, but nothing really that's kind of massively impacted me financially, let's say.
Yeah, I just a few time ones. I having to go back into stores and return some absolutely just ludicrous items. I think I once had to go back into a store and return. There's like 15 pink stitch money boxes, and I'm glad they didn't want to prolong any conversation in it, because it would have been very awkward.
Yeah, that's the worst part.
So Aaron, do you remember the early days? You've been doing it obviously for a while now, but do you remember the early days of scaling up your business, gaining confidence, spending more money, doubling down more on products?
Yeah, definitely. So at the beginning I was quite cautious, because obviously very early on in your business stage you don't want to make too many mistakes. You are kind of limited with what capital you do have, so you do generally become a bit more cautious. However, now it's a bit more free flow, and I think scared money doesn't make money.
Yeah, definitely.
And kind of think about what's the worst thing could happen. Majority of the time, you might break even on products. So, I think the only way to really make money on Amazon is to just take those risks that not everyone else is willing to take.
Yeah, definitely. And from taking those risks, do you have any sort of euphoric highs that you can touch on?
I think my first big purchase. So it's quite funny actually. So me and a friend of mine at the time, we rented out a warehouse. We were going to go into wholesale. Which didn't materialise for one reason or another. But we went to pick up some set trucks from a local guy down the road, and then we found out that he was closing up his Amazon store. He was doing SFP. He had 3 containers full of hot tub accessories, and he was basically just looking to shift them because they were liquidating. So I rented a huge van, parked it up. I think I had about $5,000 in cash that I took out. I think that's kind of the only money that I had available to me at the time. And then we worked out some great margins, probably 50 to 80% ROI on these products, and just completely filled the van with hot tub products. Brought them back to my house, and then just spent like the next 2 or 3 days boxing them all up, trying to find enough boxes from somewhere to hold all these items. But yeah, that was a really good moment. Peak of summer. They probably all sold within, I think, a week or 2 as well.
Yeah, lovely. I was going to say, if you got that during the peak of winter, that would have been a lot of holding on a lot of big old stock. But great that you got it during the peak of summer.
He was trying to flog me a load of Skechers trainers as well, but after doing the analysis, they didn't sell too well, even though we told me they did. So I passed on those. But yeah, the hot tub accessories were probably my best product.
Yeah.
Well, it was like the accessories. It was literally like the neck things and the cup holders and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So from that big purchase, how much do you think you made from that one purchase alone?
Probably about £4,000 profit. So
wow. Very nice.
If you consider it took me a couple of days to pack the units, maybe a couple of weeks to shift them, £4,000 is not too bad, to be fair. Yeah,
and it really just shows taking the risk has really paid off there, because it's not your most sort of run-of-the-mill sort of sourcing, just a guy down the road who's previously did on Amazon. So really showing that, I guess, risks can pay off.
Yeah, exactly that. And I mean, £4,000 back into the company at an early stage, really helped me then to scale going forward.
Yeah. So you've got a very successful Amazon business running at the moment, Aaron, but what would you say is the 2 most important things that you managed to get from using SellerToolKit?
So for me personally, obviously just have a clear indication of your business. So how much profit you're making on a daily basis, how many sales you're generating, but also the repricing feature. I think for me that's the best part about SellerToolKit. Giving you the time away from manually repricing your products and having a good, reliable repricer. I have tried a couple of reprices in the past, but none of them compared to how kind of easy and simplistic the SellerToolKit one is.
And it really is something that's very useful when you're building and, like we said earlier, scaling your business. At the beginning, you can probably manage a few products, and it's probably good to see the sort of fluctuations of how it goes up and down with more sellers. But as you grow in a business, especially if you don't want to be spending a lot of time on it, it's definitely a tool that can really help.
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you a bit of a sort of backstory, really. So for the first kind of 3 or 4 months, I was using spreadsheets, even working out my profit on spreadsheets. And then my friend actually bought SellerToolKit before I did for the repricer. And he was like, look how much money I'm making, that's off the back of a repricer. And I was a bit of a tight ass at the beginning. I didn't really want to pay anything extra out of my pocket. So I was spending an hour a day repricing. So what I kind of thought at the end was, well, that's 30 hours a month.
Yeah.
For just over 30 quid, it's a no-brainer. And yeah, I've not looked back since.
Yeah, so one of the best ways of looking at it is just working out how much is this job costing, or how much is this task costing, and then working out actually you're going to make a lot more money spending that time sourcing, or spending that time maybe following up sort of reimbursements rather than
exactly.
doing admin. Really,
my thing every single month as well. Like you touch on the reimbursements, that's one thing I check every single month at the beginning, because there's so many issues that happen with Amazon, lost stock or damaged inventory. To have a piece of software within SellerToolKit that will find those for you and then help you get your cash back, even that alone can kind of pay for the membership as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing. I normally do my sourcing in the morning and then catch up with anything that's happened overnight in terms of reimbursements, or if they've underpaid me for one of my reimbursements along the lines of that, because again, it's one of those tasks. It doesn't take much time, but you can earn a decent amount of money, and it's, I say, money left on the table if you're not chasing it up.
Exactly. When you look at it like that, STK essentially becomes free. So
yeah,
it's such a good tool.
So talking earlier about the 2020 version of you who's buying and selling PlayStation 5s, but if you could be telling yourself something nowadays about your Amazon business, what would you say?
I mean, I probably didn't envisage that I'd be doing it for this long, but I'm so glad I stuck at it, because it hasn't always been good. You know, there has been a few bad times, or times where maybe I've been fed up with certain things, but yeah, I'm really glad I stuck with it, and I think the community that I've managed to build has been sort of invaluable since I started. So, you know, I want to focus predominantly on my Amazon FBA business. That's my bread and butter. But what I also like to do is help people along the way as well. I get a real kind of sense of pride of, you know, seeing people set up their Amazon accounts to, you know, potentially leaving their 9 to 5 or paying for a holiday or whatever it may be. So, you know, since I started Amazon, I've always been in a space where I've helped, you know, I've probably helped over 2,000 people now set up and scale on Amazon. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what I do. So I run my Amazon business, and then I also have the education side of things as well. And it's two things that I really, really enjoy.
And it must be very self-rewarding as well, teaching other people, even not for the money, you know, just for the sake of seeing other people doing well. And another thing I'll probably touch on is, I imagine over the 5 years you've seen every year people saying, "Oh, it's a dead business model. You're not going to be able to make money. Amazon FBA is dead." But every single year, I mean, you're know firsthand and teaching thousands of people that it just isn't a dead model, and it's a model that hopefully will just happen year and year and year, and you know, not come across too many hurdles.
Yeah, and I think most of the people that say it's dead or it's saturated are probably the people that don't want to put the time and effort into actually learning how to source properly. You know, you can buy deal sheets, you can buy deals, you can be fed deals, leads, whatever you want to call them. However, that's not going to make you ultimately successful. It's, you know, you could potentially generate some good income from that, but you know, learning how to source your own products, getting yourself out there, putting the time into it, and taking those risks is what's, you know, sets you apart from everyone else, really.
And it really isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. That's the reality is it isn't, because if you go in with that sort of mindset, you're just gonna, you know, you're basically probably going to scale too fast. You're going to end up making very costly mistakes. But if you actually respect kind of the business model, respect that you've got to learn loads of stuff, and you respect that maybe you want to diversify what you're selling, then you're probably not going to walk away thinking, "Oh, it's a con. All these people are conning you, and you know, it doesn't actually work." And in reality, you've really just got to respect the business model, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's what I tell a lot of people. I say, look, you know, you might see a lot of videos online that make it look easy. There are aspects of Amazon that do, you know, that can be easy, but it's a real business at the end of the day. You've got to put time into it. You've got to continue to educate yourself. And yeah, you're never ever going to get rich quick through Amazon FBA, but it's a great sustainable long-term income that can generate you, you know, a lot of money.
So Aaron, as you were saying, you've helped over 2,000 Amazon FBA sellers. But if you were to strip it back to absolute basics, what advice would you give to Amazon FBA sellers?
I think the biggest advice really would be to treat it like a proper business. You know, people go to university if they want to learn a trade. You know, they go to college. But what a lot of people do is they'll jump into Amazon. They won't really kind of learn the basics, and then they'll make mistake after mistake, or even down to the analysis side of things. You know, they won't analyze things properly, and that can kind of really hinder you. And then people just give up early on. But I think, you know, treat it like a real business. Don't be afraid to invest, whether that be in education, whether that be a Discord server, whether that be for a mentorship. But make sure you kind of do your research first on who you're putting your money with, because there are a lot of people out there that will promise you to get you from 0 to say 100 grand in a month and tell you every secret that they know, but they just won't. So what I kind of pride myself on is, over the last 4 years I worked on a Discord server with one of the biggest Amazon FBA providers in the UK, helped over 2,000 people, and then last month decided to part ways from them and basically go alone and try my own thing. I think it was kind of time to do that. What we've recently built, we've built a Discord server with 3 sections. So the first section is basically all your education is completely free. So anybody off the street could jump into the Discord server. They don't need to pay me a penny, and I will give them everything that they need to know to get an Amazon business started, and everything that you need to know to make it work. They also get a live chat support as well in there, so any time of day or night they can ask a question, I'll answer it. Again, that's completely free of charge. Then we have a really cool premium section. It's only $19.99 a month, so it keeps costs down. That gives you access to a great community, weekly live calls, and also there's some really good bots in there that won't give you deals to buy. There's a couple that will, but a majority of it is enabling you to source better. So sourcing tools, where one of the tools alone we have on the market at the moment is £30 a month. So we're giving you everything for £19.99. So this isn't like me. I don't want to get rich off the back of this. I just want to try and help people, as many people as I possibly can, get into a good position, be a bit more financially free, and the funds that I get off the back of that is predominantly, for my time to run the server, but also to pay for the bots that I've implemented in there as well.
Yeah, I really like the angle that you're going with the server, because again, a lot of servers are sold on you to make this much, or we'll just drip feed you deals. But the angle, from what I gauge, that you're taking is learning, really, just learning over drip feeding. Because in the end of the day, learning, you can take that with you a year in advance, you can take it a few years in advance, take it a few months in advance. But obviously, if you just get given a deal, but you don't understand where that deal has come from, you don't understand why have you recommended it, then obviously, it's good for us you've got the stock and if it works for you. But obviously, if it doesn't work for you, you're not going to be able to apply anything down the line.
Yeah, for sure. And don't get me wrong, like some of the deals that you buy from these other servers or deal sheets, you can make good money off them. But I think to go that step further is giving you the tools to try and find your own products, and then you've got less chance of that product saturating. I started doing retail arbitrage. I was doing that for about 2.5, 3 years. I think I did about £500,000 worth of revenue just from retail arbitrage. And then due to my kids being homeschooled, I then wanted to be at home more, so then I transitioned to A2A and OA. Basically just wanted to continue working on the business if we ever decide to go on holiday, or if I don't want to leave the house, essentially. So I've got kind of 5 years worth of knowledge on those 3 sectors. And then what I say to people, and I don't really push this down people's throats because it is for some people, it isn't for others.
Yeah.
But if you genuinely want to learn everything that I know about sourcing, literally everything, I don't hold any secrets. As you can probably tell, I'm a bit of an oversharer. So it's like, there's videos inside this Discord server. There is an extra charge for that. But if you genuinely want to learn how to source, find your own products and make this a real business, then that is another option as well.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, this sounds like amazing for brand new sellers. They can learn for free, and if they really want to scale up and basically unlock more information, well, then they have the ability of doing that. So thank you very much for joining us, Aaron. Thank you very much for answering the questions and giving people a bit of an insight into yourself and your up-and-coming server. So, Aaron, the question is, where can people find you for both your servers and your socials?
So just simply go on Instagram, type in demand FBA. All the information will be on there. So yeah, feel free to get in touch.
Lovely. Thank you very much.